Hi folks, welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show. This is Tony coming to you from New Zealand, and with me on the show I have Leo Hohmann. Leo's been a guest on the A Minute to Midnight Show several times now, and I always learn something, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our previous conversations. I'm sure this one will be no different. So welcome, Leo.
Thanks for having me back, Tony.
That's all good. So we were going to look at a few of your new articles. Perhaps you want to just tell the listeners where they can find your articles first.
Absolutely. I'm online at leohohmann.com. I'm also on Telegram at Leo Hohmann author/journalist. And I just started a new Rumble channel where people can see all of my recent interviews. This one will be posted there as well as soon as you get it ready to go. Sounds good.
Okay, so one article that I wanted to start off with, which I thought was very good, that you've written on your website, was titled Global Central Banks Racing to Implement Digital Currencies as Cities Convert to Smart Infrastructure, Track and Control Grid being erected right under our noses. And just a little bit in your article, it's quite a way down in the article, you said this: remember what globalist economist Pippa Malmgren said at the World Government Summit in March of this year, when she said the quiet part out loud, stating, "We are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to," and I'll say this boldly, we are about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having an almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. So there, yeah.
Yeah, far greater clarity over what's going on with everybody's spending habits, everybody's freedom of movement. They want to track and monitor everybody's movement, Tony, as well as their spending habits. Why? So they can find out how climate friendly your particular lifestyle is or is not. And then they can assign a social credit score based on that, on your behavior patterns. They're not just collecting all this data, to amuse themselves and say, oh, look where Tony Koretz is traveling once a week. And, oh, let's see, where is Tony spending his money? Isn't that cool? Tony just bought another gun last week. Or Tony seems to buy an awful lot of petrol. Where is he going? This is not what it's all about. The reason they are collecting this data is so that they can influence and change our behavior. Now, how are they going to do that? They can't really do it right now because we have paper money. We can spend that money wherever we want, however much we want. And nobody can really track it. We also don't have digital IDs. But once we get the digital ID, which is coming into play through the vaccine passports, digital health passports, COVID passports, whatever you want to call them, and then we get the digital money, why then it becomes quite easy to track and monitor everything that's going on in the economy and to go ahead and implement that social credit scoring system like what they have in China. That's the end game here. That is the goal. That is what they're all hoping to get accomplished, I think, by the end of 2023, 2024 at the latest. They've been talking about, well, they're already got tons of pilot programs going around the world, the different central banks. And the most recent one was announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, it's interesting. You could read about this article in Fox News and find out that they're limiting cash withdrawals starting the 1st of next year, which is only a couple weeks away now, believe it or not. The Central Bank of Nigeria says that you'll only be able to withdraw about a limit of $45 per day and $220 per week in cash in that country. So you could read about that in Fox News. You didn't need leohohmann.com to tell you that. However, this is where it gets interesting. And I didn't know this when I first read the article last week in Fox News. I had to start researching a little bit on my own. And I come to find out that Nigeria is one of just 9 countries in the entire world that already has a digital currency. The problem is, like what's going to be the problem with all digital currencies, is hardly anybody likes it and not nearly enough people are using it. And so what are they going to do in order to force people into this digital money platform? They're going to do what Nigeria announced last week, the Central Bank of Nigeria. Limit the amount of cash that will be in circulation so that people will be forced to use the digital tokens. And as Rebecca Walzer said, she is an economist and a more of a financial analyst and financial planner than an economist. She has said in recent interview with a friend of mine, Brandon House, that it's really not even accurate or fair to refer to these as digital money because it's not money in the traditional sense. Money is a store of value. And if you have this store of value and you can build wealth, that's money. But that's not what they have planned for us in this new world order, in which they're getting all of the nations of the world to create digitized tokens. This isn't money. This is more like vouchers, tokens, which they can turn on or turn off depending on your social credit score, or they can limit where exactly these tokens will be accepted. And so we're starting to get a clearer view as this moves forward exactly how these central banks intend to use this digital money system to manipulate and control us.
Well, it's interesting too because I don't know how many of our listeners and viewers have seen the, I think, 15 or 13-minute clip, I can't remember exactly how long it was, from Oxford, England. The World Economic Forum's smart cities, that they're bringing in, and they've got them it's starting in Australia and various places where they call them 15-minute cities, or in parts of Australia, I think they're calling them 20-minute cities. But basically,
they're calling them 20-minute cities?
I think in some part of Australia, yeah, it's 20-minute, I think. I'm trying to remember where it is. Melbourne, maybe. So 15-minute cities, and well, perhaps you can explain what this is. It's people will be, I think, shocked if they realise what's going on in Oxfordshire in England, and it's really a blueprint for all of us for the future.
Well, here's how the boffins explain it. Every resident will be required to register their car with the county council, who will then monitor how many times they leave their district via number plate recognition cameras. People can drive freely around their own neighbourhood and must apply for a permit to drive through the filters and into other neighbourhoods, which they can apply to for up to 100 days per year. The council will then track their movements via smart cameras positioned all around the city. If any of Oxford's 150,000 residents drives outside of their designated district more than 100 days in the year, he or she can be fined $150 a pop. Now, think about how easily we motorists and pedestrians are herded around like sheep in our own cities. How often the concrete and plastic barriers suddenly appear out of nowhere. Notice how you can barely find anywhere to park in Sydney CBD these days, and how instead there's all these empty bike lanes for miles and miles that have taken over so much space on our roads, and yet completely empty because even the cyclists hardly ever use them. So what exactly is a 15-minute city? The term was coined in 2016 by Sorbonne professor Carlos Marino, who was given a Nobel Award in 2021 for developing his idea. I'll bet he was. The lovies lapped it up. Quote, "A truly livable and sustainable urban future that places each global citizen at the heart of their own city," was the gushing blurb. When they say places each global citizen at the heart of their own city, of course, I suspect what they really mean is imprisons each global citizen within 5 kilometres of their own home. Unsurprisingly, we find the concept enthusiastically being sold by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, the same mob who hope that by 2030 you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yeah, the Oxfordshire City Council approved this 15-minute city pilot program starting in 2024, where they want to start experimenting with just how it would be to work out a 15-minute city, meaning that people would be limited. I don't know exactly how they're going to enforce this, although they do indicate that there would be some penalty for violating it, where people would be limited to moving. Their freedom of movement would be limited to within a 15-minute walk or bicycle ride from their homes, meaning, and to get you would have to get special permission to drive a vehicle outside of that 15-minute zone, as I understand it. It's very controversial. A lot of people don't even believe that it's real, but you can go on the World Economic Forum website and see where they're talking about 15-minute cities. And you can go on other websites and find out where the Oxfordshire City Council definitely did agree to be a participant as one of the UK's first 15-minute cities. Exactly how it works out between now and 2024 when they try to enact this remains to be seen. But that city council is on record in favor of this and stating that it is something they want to develop starting in 2024.
And they don't really care what the people think. I remember hearing that in that video. Basically, It doesn't matter whether the population wants it or not. They basically said they're going to do it.
Absolutely. And I've got a video, an excellent video by Neil McCoy Ward at the end of that article that we were just talking about on the global central banks racing to implement digital currencies as cities convert to smart infrastructure. If you scroll down to the end of that article, you will be able to watch an excellent 13-minute video, not very long, laying out the details on these 15-minute cities. It's all about limiting people's travel and their, quote, CO2 footprint, their carbon footprint. This is where we're heading. This is, as I've written in the recent past, Tony, I believe this is the new world religion coming into being. It's a form of earth worship, which really harkens back to ancient paganism, where we worship the created things as opposed to the creator. That seems to be where we're heading. And when you see people like Pope Francis and even the Muslim leaders getting on board with this thing, it really does get a little creepy, because these are religious leaders who are supposed to be representing their traditional faith as written in the Bible. And if you're Muslim, you would refer to the Quran, which I believe is a false prophecy, but it is believed by millions, tens of millions of Muslims around the world. So why would you, if you were a leader of that faith, or if you were a leader of the Catholic faith or the Christian faith, why would you want to steer your followers towards something that is totally pagan in nature? This earth worship and this idea that carbon is bad. Human beings are made of carbon. Animals are made of carbon. Plants need carbon to grow. Carbon dioxide. Without enough carbon dioxide, plant life in the entire world comes under threat of not being able to thrive. And when that happens, we have what's called famine and starvation. Of course, that seems to be what the World Economic Forum cronies want to bring upon the earth. If you look at the puppet governments who have these young global leaders leading their national governments, Young Global Leaders is the program by Klaus Schwab, where they teach leaders of all the different nations to be globalist in their outlook. Take the Netherlands, for instance.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's a perfect example.
Right. Just last week, they announced that they're going to shut down 3,000 farms.
Yeah.
They're going to buy them out, force them to sell their land, and shut them down.
And the Netherlands is, I think the most, but after the United States, the country that exports the most agricultural products in the world. And they've got it down to a T, the way they farm things. And, of course, now they're saying, well, that nitrogen is a problem. So we have to get rid of all these farmers using nitrogen fertilizer and so on. And if you tell them that, the atmosphere is made up of 85% nitrogen, they'll just tell you you're a climate change denier, But it's...
Right. Well, they've got, so the farms that they don't close down and shut down in the Netherlands, they're going to make less productive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why? Because they won't be able to use modern farming methods, which involves using nitrogen fertilizers. They say, that they also want to cull the herds of cattle and sheep and pigs and goats and chickens. It is an absolute war on food. And, why do we have a war on food? Why do we have governments shutting down farms and governments, like in the United States, paying farmers to not farm certain tracts of land? And in other countries like the Netherlands and Canada and Belgium, they're forcing them to use 40 to 50% less nitrogen fertilizer. Why would we be pursuing policies like that, especially at a time like this? It would be different if we were in a period of overabundance of food, but we're already suffering, this world of ours, from shortages of food. And so it makes no sense on its face. And when something, I don't know about you, Tony, but when something makes no logical sense on its face, I tend to dig a little deeper. And then you find out, oh, wait a minute. These same people, these World Economic Forum stooges, and their overlords, people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and Noah Yuval Harari, they're all concerned about one thing above all else. What is that? Overpopulation. We've talked about this before, how they always seem to be talking about we have too many people on the planet. And in order to save the planet, we need to reduce the number of people.
Okay, so I just want to...
demonic.
Yep, I'm going to interrupt here and say, folks, I think where we're going to go a fair bit, and the rest of this show will not be YouTube friendly. It'll just get banned. So if you're watching on YouTube up to this far, this is the end of the line. If you want to watch the rest of our interview, then go to aminutetomidnight.com or else our A Minute to Midnight Rumble channel or BitChute channel, or Leo Hohmann will have it on his Rumble channel as well. So that's it for the YouTube video, but there's a lot of hard-hitting stuff to come. So make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you flick over to the other places to see the rest of the video.